Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Long Island Legends podcast, the only podcast on Long Island showcasing the most legendary figures in our community. And today, I am joined by Chris Ferrari with Insula Capital. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Very excited.
So before we get into what Chris does, I want to give the audience a little bit of a background. Chris also works for Suffolk County House Buyers as our relationship manager. So his job is to go out there and build relationships. It could be realtors, it could be attorneys, anybody that is part of a broader network, so to speak, that will allow us to connect with people that we can meet homeowners that are in need of our services, somebody that's looking to sell, as we always say, on their terms, their timeline, their way. But Chris also does private money capital for Insula Capital. So for those of you, for investors out there that are looking for private money, whether you're doing new builds, fix and flips, definitely worth talking to Chris about. But I'll jump into the relationship managing aspect of it. So if you can, give me just a little bit of the challenges you find working with trying to build relationships with people. What have you found to be the most compelling parts of it, but also the most challenging in going to people and saying, hey, you know, I work with Jeremiah Dalton, I work with Suffolk County House Buyers. We want to build a relationship with you. We want to be able to network with people that can bring us properties where homeowners will actually benefit from our services. What have you found to be the biggest challenge? I want to start there.
I think you just, almost the answers in the question is finding the people that are in need of our services, trying to get the realtors, maybe straight up homeowners that we're able to find, through the connections that we're able to make, all the people that we connect with, build those relationships with. It's getting them to understand, is this a good scenario for your client or for the actual seller themselves? We've spoken about it before. In some cases, we look at properties where maybe they're really not in distress. I mean, we don't want just fully distressed properties, but maybe it's just better to put it on the market. In some cases, you're going to get more money and the transaction might go in a way where you're happy with that. But for the clients who are really in need of just an off-market, cash deal, could take 6 months, could take a week, that might be the best opportunity for them. And that's where I found a lot of challenges is speaking to the realtors, getting them to understand exactly what we do. I believe that we're really there for the seller. We're not there for the realtor to be like, hey, you're going to get the listing on the back end. And that's what they want. That's the goal at the end of the day. But we're really there to help the homeowner out, put them in a better position if they're in, some type of negative position, and hopefully bring that property back to life to where, maybe they lived there as a kid. We wanted to make it look like, when they were a child or,
a new and improved version of what they had.
So if they're able to drive by it, 5-10 years from now and they see another family there, it brings back when they were a kid and the home was, the way it should look.
Yeah. Because if it's truly 100% business decision, right? And it's all about just the money, then we're not the right person.
No.
Right?
No.
But sometimes, a lot of times, it's an emotional reason for the reasons that you just brought up. But also, too, there's also, they come up to a point in their life, right, where money isn't the most important thing, right? And the ability to have something quick and easy and seamless, right? And like I say, I always say this, their terms, their time, their way. When you're a seller, and I know this as a professional seller, buyer and seller of homes,
100%.
like you're at the, mercy of all these people on the other side of the transaction.
That you got to trust.
That you got to trust, right? And a lot of times, no matter how good it looks on paper, at the end of the day, like the cookie doesn't crumble the way you want it to, right? Yep. And so to that point, as a seller, like of a home, now we give that power back to them.
Yes.
Right? So I think you made a lot of good points. And for those of you watching, now you understand why I hired Chris, because he put it even, more eloquently.
You're going to make the money in reality.
Of course.
You are, unless you pick a deal and you're, you don't know what you're doing, but obviously you're very professional. You're very experienced. It's not always all about the money. It's about the families. And a lot of these deals that I've come across with you are estate deals.
Sure.
People who have lost their family members. The last thing they want to deal with is somebody who's money hungry coming in there, giving them a low offer, kind of,
Yeah.
screwing them over. You want somebody who's just going to take care of you, smooth transaction, and your reviews have also showed that. So
Yes,
it's a very
thank you.
big positive.
I appreciate that. And to give you a compliment, some people, Chris, how old are you? Tell the audience.
26.
Same-
26,
he's
yeah.
26, but he's he's got he's an old soul.
I'm 85 at heart. My
But he's
back
at 80,
hurts. my
85
legs
at
hurt.
heart. You would never know in a million years that he was 26, wise beyond his years, certainly a lot
Thank
more
you.
mature than I was at that age. But all right, so I obviously just wanted to give the audience
Yes.
a little bit of a background on what you do. And so if you're all watching this and you're a realtor and you're looking to build a relationship with Suffolk County house buyers, definitely reach out to Chris. They could find you. We'll get to some of your
Yeah.
contact info later
Yep.
on, but reach out to Chris. And, like you said, we'd love to build a relationship. He's done a great job of facilitating relationships with agents that I've never even worked with. And now I have the pleasure of you know, doing business with. So it's been great. So let's now dive into the private money aspect of things. Okay. So you started as just a regular loan officer,
Yep.
right? Doing residential mortgages
Conventional FHA, VA, rate and term,
for
cash out
homeowners.
refinance. Yep.
Strictly that.
Yep.
How did you find yourself segueing into the hard money, private money sector?
So, I've been in the industry 5-6 years now as a licensed loan officer. Everybody got into the market when COVID hit. Rates were super low. My first loan was a 199 for 30 years. Free
Really?
money. Yeah. Free money. Pretty crazy. And they didn't spend
199.
any points.
Wow.
It was a rate and term refinance. It was pretty
Wow.
crazy.
I hadn't heard 199. I heard
yeah.
twos. I didn't hear
My
that.
parents have a 1.75.
Really?
Yeah, 10-year loan. It was
Okay,
crazy.
well, 10-year, yeah.
Yeah, we were doing, it was everybody, as long as your credit score was decent, everybody had a pretty good credit score. Everything was going well on the market. So, we were doing pretty well. But obviously, everything kind of comes to a halt, obviously. Interest rates start to trickle up at a pretty quick rate. So, I was in a position where I wish I got into the market or into that business maybe a year or two earlier. So I was starting to get a little slow. I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know if I was going to just leave the company that I was at and the mortgage career or maybe go somewhere else. Fortunately, I kind of found another place my friend's father owns. And he was like, listen, we're not just a residential mortgage company. There's two companies. We have a private money lender. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means.
yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. Never really knew what a fix and flip was. I think I was just kind of uneducated about the process of what it was. And, the day I got there, they were like, what are you doing? What are you doing to get business? And I was like, what do you mean? I just got here. Like, I don't even, he's like, don't worry about the product. Just go out there and sell. There's plenty of people on Long Island. We're nationwide. So if you don't want to do Long Island, we have leads that you can call around the country. You'd be surprised on how many deals you can get. I've never called a lead in my life like that. It's all referral based for me.
Sure.
So it was definitely a new venture, but it definitely taught me how to sell. So, kind of jumping ship to what I thought was a regular residential mortgage company is how I got into the business of I almost think it fell into my lap. And very quickly I jumped on board and drank the Kool-Aid and got going with it. So
Excellent. So as working with agents, right? Going back to the relationship manager aspect, learning and understanding and seeing how some agents are really good, right? Some agents are really bad.
we talk about it.
We talk about it a lot. There's unfortunately a very low barrier to entry, right?
Yes.
And that's not to say that obviously there's a lot of great agents that just come through
tremendous amount.
The same pathways as the bad ones. But in working with agents as closely as you do, right? Have you felt as though that has allowed you to kind of your BS meter goes up a little bit, right? Would you say? Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, you're now getting approached by people, oh, I fix and flip X amount of deals, I build this, I build that, right? Have you found that you've been able to kind of sniff out the BS artists from the people that are actually legitimate?
I would say I learned that more as the relationship manager rather than because with the mortgages, you're trying to just get deals, right? Maybe not so much on the private money, but even with the private money, you're just trying to get deals. You don't care if they're good, they know what they're doing, just hand me the deal, I'll take care of it. But as the relationship manager, very quickly where there's been deals I brought you and we've had to sit down to discuss, it's a good deal, but we're going to have issues on the back end when we're going to give you the listing. But that's the problem is, we're getting into maybe potentially luxury market, luxury markets, higher end homes. You have to be really concerned on who's on the other end trying to sell you that property. Do they know what they're doing? Do they understand the market? And there's a lot of people out there that don't, unfortunately. You don't
Yeah.
have to be busy to be good. You can understand everything you need to know, even if you only do a deal a month. But there's people out there who do a deal a year, and it
Yeah.
shows that they just lack experience.
Well, to
It's
your
unfortunate.
point, right? When you first came and started working with us, you would bring something to me, and then I'd be like, well, that's not a deal, right? And I would
Yeah.
explain to you, like, this is a deal, and here's why. Because there's this misconception that if, let's say, I buy a house for 300 and I put in 100, right?
Yep.
I'm all in for 400, right? That if I sell for 500, which we can do, that we're making 100. We're not even making
even
close.
close.
We're
Yeah.
making something on that.
Yeah.
But a few things go wrong.
That's the third grade math.
Yeah.
that you could do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some first time investors
Yeah.
do that math.
So now you've learned to understand what a deal is, because I know, I gave you the education, the knowledge to say, okay, this is how the costs break down. So obviously I'm hoping that as you now ventured more deeper into that private money scene, right? Like now you
yeah.
could see, like,
Tremendous.
somebody brings you something, you're like, nah, this isn't gonna work, man. Like,
There's deals I don't even tell you about
Sure.
because I'm like, have a good day.
Yeah.
You're way off.
but
Like, I
even
don't
on the now,
you know.
even where somebody's looking to you for financing,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Big
I
time.
mean, in some ways, if hopefully like they get their head on straight, but they bring you something and you could be like, yeah, not only are we not lending on this, you shouldn't buy it either. right?
100%. I run the numbers for all my clients. Like if I'm going to hand you a proof of funds, I'm like, you have to tell me what you're making an offer on. I need to know the purchase price, renovation amount, after repair value. And if it's like a close margin, I'm like, you
Yeah.
can't make a mistake here.
Yeah.
Unless you're experienced, such as yourself, probably going to tell you no go.
Yeah.
You don't
and
find something else.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you're off on the sale price, which a lot of people have gotten lucky because the market's been more forgiving. It's certainly not forgiving when it comes to the renovations, right? Like prices are going up, and we'll get to
Through
that
the
in a
roof.
second. But prices are going up. Contractors will screw you over. No matter how good of a deal you have, right? At the end of the day, if you can't get somebody to do the work the right way, it's going to be
Yeah.
tough sledding.
100%. You have your carrying costs. Like people don't think about those things. An extra month on the market could be a deal breaker. I know it doesn't sound like a lot to some people, but to my numbers as a lender,
Yeah.
it really does matter.
It does. And because even if, and this has happened to me many times before, where, everything could go right. You buy the property the right way, you stay on budget for the rehab, you put it on the market and it sells right away. But then guess what happens, right? Like the buyer that's actually, submitting the offer is using a loan officer that maybe has done one or two deals, and, they'll get their commitment. You'll get that commitment pretty
Yeah.
quickly, but then getting to the actual closing table, I mean, I have a few right now where it's like, we've had our commitment for 6 weeks and we still not
Yeah.
clear to close. Like, what's going on? And that all translates into, lost money for me.
Mhm.
So time, when they say time is of the essence, it absolutely is.
And again, your first time investor is not thinking of the loan officer that is helping the buy. Like
Doesn't even
there's-
factor in.
there's a million moving pieces and you got to put them all together. And if one person's off, it's money out of your pocket. And we'll
Yeah.
get more into that with the builders that I work with and how that's majorly affecting them right now. But you bring up a good point with that.
So obviously you're working with a lot of builders. I've seen you do loans for a lot of big time ground up construction. The tariffs are in the news, right?
Mhm.
It's all everybody's talking about. What have you seen from the builders that you're doing lending on behalf of? What problems they're running into, if any, right now?
So obviously the tariffs the cost of goods and products and supplies were already through the roof,
Yes.
as you know.
Yes.
So, it's a little different with the ground ups than it is fix and flips. And we've spoken personally about this. They're very tight on Long Island. Very, very tight. The cost of land is super high. It's the only way you can get it is by spending your money, whether you want to or not. And then now you're building these 2,500 square foot homes and you got to sell them at 1.2, 1.3 million. You have no choice. Then I'm getting appraisals. There's no comps in the area for that. So it's now for the lending side, I got to go off of a lower after repair value number. Your tariffs have just blown the roof off that. So now it's even tighter where I'm cutting leverage to borrowers who, in reality, I would give them the last dollar I had. I trust them so much. They're so experienced there's not really much I can do. So the tariffs have made it even harder for your one-off builder, a guy who finds a piece of land and is like, I'm just going to build a home. You just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I know.
It's too tight unless you're going to do it all in cash, which the average person doesn't want to do in this market. It's very difficult. So the tariffs have taken a huge hit. I do primarily Long Island, so they work. They might not work to the extent that the builder wants, but we're able to make them work. You know, there's a couple loan officers in my office who do a lot of Texas deals, a lot of Florida deals, and they're getting hammered. They're getting hammered out there. It's interesting, but the cost is also lower in Texas. But everything is relative. You know, you got to think about it. Like everybody's like, oh, I'm going to move to North Carolina because it's cheaper there. You're also making less money, so it's relative.
Yes,
you got to think of how that works. So everybody's like, oh, the homes are cheaper. The cost to build is cheaper. Everything is going down. So it just equates to the same thing as it is up here.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a huge shift in the way builders are building. I think they're going to start to do more fix and flips. Or maybe rebuilds. You know, find a home and do some type of major vertical, horizontal renovation. And try to sell it that way, because it's just, to go from the ground up is brutal.
So as you bring that up, that was my next question. You're seeing a lot of builders kind of across the country finding themselves in trouble?
It really depends. And again, I say experience a lot, and I know we're going to talk about that later. Experience is so important. As yourself, who probably one of the most experienced flippers on Long Island, New York, in the country, you understand. You don't want to over leverage yourself. You don't want to put yourself in a position where now you got all these homes, you can't offload them because you can't sell them. So I will say I see a lot of builders being a lot more cautious than they used to be, really reconsidering buying those big subdivisions for $1 million, because they're like, I got to wait 18 months for the health department. Then I got to get the permits. Then I got to quit. It's a very long process. And I know everybody knows New York is a pain in the ass with, you know, permits and things like that, but it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. I think it's probably magnified here. I was messaging with somebody on social media the other day, and he's a builder in Jersey.
Okay. Yeah, Jersey is. It's like the same thing as New York right now.
So to be fair, to give you an idea, he had a picture of like his permit in hand, and he was talking about, it's a great day. We got our approval to start, digging. So I know him. We're in the same mastermind together. And so I just messaged him, and it was, on the thread, on the post, and said, oh, how long did it take you to get the permit? And he was like, 7 weeks, and I was like, really? 7 weeks?
Who's this guy now?
Yeah. So even like, New Jersey and, operates similar to New York, and this is for a new build. I don't believe I don't know if it's a tear down. I'm not sure exactly the scenario.
Gonna have to get that guy's number. Find out who he knows.
But the point is that like those, even in Jersey where it's considered more difficult to transact business, like he's like saying, 7 weeks, like, took longer than he would have liked. But then it was me and then actually another investor as well that were like commenting. I'm like, if the stars align, and this is like the equivalent of winning lotto, 4 months at best, and I'm talking about like and you have to be in the right town, everything has to fall into play. You probably can do it in the right town. Like if you're in like a town like Huntington that offers like expedited review or something like that, you could probably do it in 6 to 7 months.
Which is crazy.
Right? So that's like a best case scenario, because yes, you have health department. Then after that, you have to go through the rigmarole of putting everything together.
Yep.
I did.
Then they want changes. You submit the changes. Yeah. You can submit the changes in an hour, 2-3 weeks added. It's
easy.
But even 7 weeks. Sometimes I sit there and I think, what are you doing for 7 weeks? What is going on for 7 weeks?
Well, I mean, listen, to be fair, right? I mean, I think 7 weeks to like build a new house. Incredible, right? Yeah. And so for like 7 weeks, like there's enough of a backlog during that time that like, and obviously towns are tight on money and et cetera. But I think that's fair, right? But like to be backed up for, 5-6 months. Now
Some people are backed up for years. I know a guy who built a home on the exact same foundation. So the foundation was damaged, but his new foundation was exactly the same down to like the minute. Year and a half to get a permit.
Yeah.
It's the same Oakdale.
Okay, so it was islip.
Easy.
So
crazy.
Yeah.
It's the same foundation. He's not changing anything.
So the house that I'm selling in Central Islip was a knockdown and rebuild, and took me about a year to get a permit. Now, I had a bad expediter. We needed a variance. I actually just got my CO as of this morning for that house.
Congrats.
Thank you. But that is one of those scenarios where, unfortunately, like they've made it so difficult. So we've talked about towns taking forever. So builders, here's the thing. Builders don't want to take the risk because it's like they're like, all right, the market's good now, but I don't know 18 months from now, right? So there's too much of a projected timeline to take that risk. They make it so hard to do it. And obviously there's increased holding cost on the land itself for whatever it is they're buying it for, because they've probably got some kind of debt attached to that land. So they got to pay the numbers on that debt. And then we just talked about the tariffs and these increased costs.
We're not even talking about environmental.
We're not even gone
There's
there.
bats, like the type of animal. There's bats out east that you're only allowed to clear land from December 1st to February 28th, 29th. I experienced that on one of my first ground up loans.
Southampton.
I handed in the files in February. He never got the permit. So I'm like, what are we doing? He's like, I can't clear the land until December 1st. I'm like, so what are we doing? He's like, you're waiting until I can clear the land.
Yeah.
How crazy. I mean, if you have a loan on the land, you're screwed at that point. All those carrying costs, it's crazy. It really is at the end of the day. But it is what it is. Somebody's got to build.
Well, somebody has to build, but the problem is that we have these challenges now, right? We don't have enough inventory, right? So, a lot of people complain. A lot of the other investors I know on Long Island, they complain. But I also understand that the same, rules and regulations that keep you from building are also the same rules and regulations that keep from overdeveloping. So it does keep inventory low. In other areas where the restrictions aren't as strict as they are here, and people can build a lot easier. Even Jersey, where somebody in 7 months, right, or 7 weeks can get a permit. Have you seen a lot of softening there as a result of overbuilding? Because
Florida's in shambles.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, South Florida on the West Coast, the East Coast, Fort Myers, Naples. If you just go on Zillow, but you go on Zillow and just look up condos specifically, there is so many condos for sale. Can't get rid of them. There's a major inventory problem in a positive way, I guess, compared to us, right? Because we're struggling with inventory. We're building nothing, it's just a constant battle. Prices are plummeting over there. I was just in Florida over the weekend, and I was talking to somebody, and they're like, I can't even, my condo's been on the market for 6 months. I keep lowering it, not even offers, not even people looking at it. So it's different, obviously, everywhere you go. Colorado, I have a couple clients out there that I do. They have rental portfolios.
Denver, right?
And they're struggling because I can't really find comps for them anymore. So now that's becoming a problem. So there's certain areas in the country where it's just an influx, on the market of rental properties, condos, multifamilies, believe it or not, too, are having issues. So, it really depends on where you are. And the overbuilding, I go back to Florida because I'm a licensed loan officer there. We're on the East Coast, so you've been there a tremendous amount. It's crazy. They're just building these massive condo buildings and nobody's moving into them. And then you have these Category 5 hurricanes that are wiping out the homes, but people don't want to live in the condos because the HOA fees are $1,200.
Yeah.
And
now the insurance costs have gone through the roof. Yeah.
People are paying the same price of homeowners insurance in Florida that we pay for property taxes on Long Island. Yeah. That's for people who don't know. We're talking $12,000 to $18,000 a year in insurance.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, because that's a big factor, and I've heard of Texas is taking a hit because of that.
Yep. But certain areas we're building like crazy. Like outside of Houston is just an influx of building right now.
There's an influx of building, but is there enough demand to support that kind of building? Because like here, there's enough demand, right? Yeah. There's enough demand despite high rates, right? Despite costs going up, there's still more buyers than there are sellers.
The houses are sold before they even put the foundations in.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like that in Texas. A lot of them you're seeing on the market 2-3 months, maybe even longer. So it's definitely a challenge. But on Long Island, even with these $1.2 million new builds, you're getting people who have the money. You're seeing people put $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 down to keep their monthly payments low because rates are so high. And it's, it's an interesting
But it's
challenge.
but it's funny, those people that they're doing everything they can to keep their rates down and their monthly payments are low are also the same people that are also spending the equivalent in change orders upgrading the homes
I know.
too. So, that's sometimes people live beyond their means, and I have always had this fear that like I think we're almost there, but at some point like we're gonna just become a completely house poor nation where
Yes.
everyone's money
100%.
is gonna go into their home and there's going to be no money for anything else.
Yeah.
But then if there's no money for anything else, what does that do for the economy? That I don't know.
I agree with that. It's a butterfly effect
Yes.
in reality.
It
You
is.
could consistently just think on and on and on about it, and you'll never stop finding different problems that are going to happen.
Yeah.
It's scary, but
Yes.
I guess we just got to get to that point, right?
Long Island residents, do you have a house that you want to potentially sell off market, your terms, your timeline, your way, or do you know of somebody that could benefit from that? Then definitely give us a call. You can reach out to us at 631-333-SELL. The number is below, or visit our website at SuffolkCountyHouseBuyers.com. And for any deal that you refer over to us where you are not the seller, the first deal you refer to us, we pay a $5,000 referral fee. The second deal, we pay a $10,000 referral fee. And get this, the third deal that you refer to us, we will split the profits with you 50-50. And some of our deals are multiple six figures, so this can be a life-changing amount of money. It could pay for weddings. It could pay for college, anything that you choose from. So please take advantage of this great opportunity. Once again, we're looking for off-market opportunities where a seller wants to sell on their terms, their timeline, their way. So we'll move away from the problem aspect, but we'll go into the solution, which is those who are ground up builders, right? They come to work with you at Insula Capital. Why should they come work with you?
In reality, we are the company to finance your projects. And when I say that, I don't mean like the one or two. Of course, I'd love to do the one or two. But if you want to be a developer in reality, you want to be somebody who's doing 10 to 20 deals at a time, because you have the experience, you can leverage it. That's where we come in. We're not your mom and pop shop. We might be a family-owned private money lender, which we are, but we're closing $60 to $70 million in business a month throughout the nation. There's really 3 to 4 loan officers in there that are just killing it on Long Island. Obviously, there's not as many investors and builders on Long Island as there is homeowners who are buying homes. So it's a little different there. But, I'm helping the developers who are like, I just bought a 10-lot subdivision. I need 10 loans. So instead of doing the one-offs, I'm able to help them do 10 projects at once, finance that so that they can go, okay, that's being handled. Now I'm going to go buy that 3-lot subdivision in Stony Brook. I'm going to go buy that 3-lot subdivision in Plainview that I was able to get for a good deal. They can keep going, keep growing while we focus on making sure they're not over leveraging themselves, but also keeping them moving forward.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
As far as like the rates that you offer, right? When like people come in, because that's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
People are constantly rate shopping. So, how in this environment where we've had our high interest rates, have you been able to offset the objections of, well, I was once paying this, now I'm paying that, right? What have you done to kind of ease the fear of these builders? Because that plays a factor into who they choose.
Obviously interest rates are different for private money than they are consumer loans. And some people, when I speak to them, they kind of like look at me like I'm nuts. Interest rates can be in the 10s, the 11s, the 12s, 13s, 14s, not for me.
Depending on the points.
Depending on the points and things like that. So, it's really dependent per builder. I'm not 12, 13, 14, 15. That's like a private person. Maybe they're not doing points. Maybe they're not recording mortgages. It really depends. For us, what's going on is, we're seeing these builders come to us and they're like, oh, well, your interest rate is a little bit high. So I'll tell them, be like, all right, my interest rate might be a little bit high to you, but I'm going to give you the leverage you want that nobody else is going to give you. And it's a 12-month loan. So what's going on for 12 months? You're talking to me every day.
Yeah.
I'm not just your loan officer that says, congratulations, you're a first-time home buyer. See you in 5-6 years if we can refi. If not, have a good life. I'm with you every step of the way. I'm foreseeing the project being, developed. I'm seeing the foundation go in. Now you need to take a draw. How do you get your money? You got to reach out to me. I send you the draw link. Hey, I didn't get enough money on my draw. I'm up on my, I'm in my draws department going, what's going on here? We got to get this money out. So
So you're
there's
just
a
making the
lot
yeah,
more,
yeah. So it's not just a matter of, hey, here's your money, best of luck with the
Exactly.
project.
It's the service.
It's the service.
Listen, anybody could shop rates, right? We all have similar, maybe different rates, and it could be said in the consumer market as well. Maybe it's just by a minute amount. You could go with that person, no problem. But you better pray they know what they're doing, because when you have a problem getting your draws out and getting your money to your contractors, whoever, whatever it is, you're going to have major problems. So if my rate is 0.25% higher, but I help you develop that project quicker, meaning instead of 8 months, I'm 6 months because I was on top of my draws, you got your money, everybody was happy. You don't give a damn about that 0.25% because the service I provided to you is bar none. I mean, I work with a guy who tells me every day, he's like, I can get cheaper money than you. I'm like, go ahead. Go ahead. But right now, I'm doing 10 deals for you because I'm on vacation and I'm doing stuff for him. Anything he needs, I get it for him. And that's the service that we offer to our clients.
And the ones that, if I know the way I operate, if you're a really good builder and you've been doing it for a really long time, same thing with flipping, right? The really good ones don't get hung up on the small, minute amount of money. They may mention it. They may be aware of it, just like I'm aware of it. It's like, I know that my contractors are not the cheapest. I know that there's another guy over there that can do it for far less.
Of course.
Okay, I sold a
There's
property.
always
always somebody. But at the end of the day, like, it's not how can I pay the cheapest? It's how I can have the smoothest operation, right? I mean, and so if that means costing me more money, but I can keep the projects moving, I can have less headache, because God knows I have enough headache and enough stress.
That's how I get these guys on Long Island. I'm like, all right, come to my office.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm like, I'm 2 blocks down the street, come to my office. You can see me face to face. You can't do that with somebody who's in California.
Yeah.
So the way I get that Long Island business is I'm like, I can meet you face to face. I'll drive up to your project. I'll come meet you. We could talk, shake hands. So at least you know who you're dealing with. That's a big difference for, I've noticed a lot of builders and investors on Long Island, is they like the fact that they can come into my office and we could solve the problem face to face. It's not over the phone where maybe I'm ignoring you because I don't want to deal with you, So that's a big factor too in the success part of that.
So you highlighted what I feel is the difference between a great loan officer and just a good loan officer. So let's dive into what separates a great builder, great developer from just an okay average one.
I said it many times, experience. It really does matter. And the experience shows, when I have those clients that I'm like, you got to tell me what you're offering. Tell me what the after repair value is. It's like anything else. Everybody's going to say the highest possible number if they're a new investor. If you're telling me that you're going to buy a home in Miller Place, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch, and you're going to sell it for $750 or $800, I'm probably going to be like, okay, that's great. Where are the comps? I already know the comps. I lived in Miller Place my whole life. I know the numbers. So, that's where I could tell between, a good investor and a not a good investor. When it comes to the builder, it's a very big difference. I'm going through your track record like you wouldn't believe. That's probably the most difficult part, is just the very beginning, the introduction of getting you onboarded. And builders don't want to do that stuff. They have people in their office that they lay it off to, and I got to get all the HUDs of the properties that you've purchased. You built something, then you sold it. A lot of these guys, I want to see not just 2 or 3. I want to see 10 or 20. That's how I'm going to get you the leverage. That's where I go, I'm not worried about lending to you right now. I have one borrower, he has $10 million out with us in the last 6 months. We don't flinch. He hands another loan in, it's approved to fund in less than a week. As long as the numbers make sense, right? We do a full appraisal every time. We make sure everything works. But what makes a good builder is they know what they're doing. They have the scopes ready for you. They're not some outrageous numbers. There's, no, I really hope this comes in. There's none of that. It's, hey, it's coming in at this. Oh, it came in a little low. All right, that's fine. That's the way the market is. Some of these builders, I can't get land comps. That's a huge problem on Long Island. You're buying land for $300, $400. There's nothing in that area. There's not much land out there right now. So that's a huge problem. But they don't flinch. They know it's going to come in low. So, with investors, especially outside of New York, that's a battle. Is, oh my God, it came in low. Like, well, your appraiser sucks. I'm like, well, first of all, he's not my appraiser, and second of all, like, that's the way it is. That's That's the game we play. And I'm sure you understand that as well. But having a builder who doesn't really flinch when there's a little bit of a speed bump in the road shows me their experience, shows me that that's the person I want to work with.
Yeah, because I mean, having done this, having built, having flipped, there's bumps I can count on two hands with the hundreds and hundreds of deals I
Yeah.
had where there were almost very few bumps,
Yeah,
right?
there's got to be at least one every time. I mean, I can't
Yeah,
imagine.
once you like one out of every 50 deals,
Yeah.
will be smooth sailing. It's so rare, but like one out of 50. So when things happen, like, sometimes it doesn't happen until the very end. And
I
I
know.
laugh. I'm like, what took you so long? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I knew that it was going to happen.
Mhm.
And so I think to your point, right, what it separates a great builder from a good builder is the great builder knows that like it's just these challenges are just kind of part of the process.
It's almost like it is what it is. I say it all the time, but they're just like, "Yep, saw that coming. Keep going."
Yeah.
Not even flinching.
It's
Yep.
just the way it goes,
Mhm.
and I think it is not for the faint of heart. I think I was going to ask this question, but you really already answered it. Like, especially when you're building and flipping, like construction knowledge is important.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's very important. Doesn't mean that you have to, like, I grew up around construction, so that gave me a little bit of a leg up, but still there was a lot to learn. I think if you don't have any construction experience whatsoever, that's okay. It's a very learnable business.
I think on the fix and flip side, that's okay. Like we work with I love first time borrowers.
Yeah.
Like I've never done a deal before. I'm like, perfect. I'm gonna make you,
Sure.
if you want to be the next big flipper.
Yeah.
I'd love to help you throughout that process. We'll make mistakes together. We'll learn things. It's gonna be perfect. But with the builders, unless you have extensive experience, and when I say extensive, we want to see like 2 to 3 before we'll even say yes to lending to you. But I want to get you the best deal possible. So I want to see the 10 to 15 to 20 or the really high budgets, and you're coming down low to do, just the regular single families now. I want to see that because that's what's going to make me trust you, know that you're an experienced builder, and you really, you got to know what you're doing if you're building
Yeah.
a home.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Like, I don't think I could go out there and flip a house and be great at it by myself. I would need help.
Yeah.
I would need you or somebody that has experience. But for me to just be like, I'm going to go buy a piece of land and I'm going to build I'm out of my mind.
Yeah.
But
now, so I always said this, like, you have to start somewhere, right?
yes.
So, like, for me, like, my first deal that I bought was through a home equity line of credit, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's how I did it. That at least gave me, a notch under the belt. And
Yeah.
then, I was able
But
to
you
get
had the
home.
home and the equity to do that with.
I did. However, for somebody who is starting out and they come to you and they've come across a deal, but they don't have the experience, right?
Mhm.
What can they do so that you'll actually take them seriously? Because I've been in that scenario where
Yeah.
you go somewhere and someone's like, yeah, sorry, I'm not really the guy for you. I work with people doing this,
Yeah.
this, and this.
Yep.
But I know I was that guy that started out doing nothing. You got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't, like, I had the benefit of the home equity line of credit. I bought my house.
Which gave you the money to even
But
start
not
the project,
everybody's
yeah.
in that scenario. So what do you suggest for that person that's starting?
There's
out?
definitely a couple options. Recently I've been fortunate enough to where I can kind of maybe if it's a lucrative deal, I can maybe hop on it with them and kind of go in half and half with them or whatever the percentage needs to be to do that. I can't really do that on Long Island yet. I do have a loan officer in my office where if the deal's good and I know we know the person, we can help them out. That's a rarity. Really what we would want you to do is potentially find a cosigner, somebody that has experience, even if it's 1 or 2 deals. Or you could do some type of GC agreement, where
It just gave me an idea. If you come across these people that like, hey,
Yeah.
they have no experience, I'll talk to them.
I
You
have,
never know. You know,
I have them, and I've had clients that have gone and found the experience, and I've been like, you don't want to get involved with this person. Like, I don't know what they just told me. Like, I have enough knowledge in this industry to know that's not normal. So, there's a couple different options. Finding a partner, somebody with experience. And especially the GC agreements. Not all general contractors want to do that because it puts them in a very liable position. But I had to do that on a major property in the Hamptons where I was like, I don't have to do the deal. I'd like to, but what are my options here? And it was, if you don't get the GC agreement, it's dead. So fortunately I was able to get it, the GC agreement because the guy already did half the project. He was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm doing it. The money's here, all good to go. But, that would be where I would tell them to start off. And in some cases, if you can't find or do any of those things, sometimes you just got to pass on the deal.
Yeah.
For some, buyers that are like, I found a property on Long Island, I'm buying it for 500, I'm gonna put 150 and I'm gonna sell it for 7. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. First of all, decline. Like, it's
Yeah,
if you're doing scopes of 100, 150 on your first time with no GC license, no GC on the deal, no experience, we're gonna pump the brakes. Maybe look somewhere else. Maybe go upstate. Maybe go to another state. Try to look for something to get some notches under your belt.
All right. So at this point, I want to wrap this up because you've given people, I think, a plethora of knowledge, whether you're a borrower for the first time, whether you are someone that's looking to build homes or fixing and flipping homes.
Yep.
I think what's the most important thing to realize here is that, like, who you partner with and who you align yourself with, and take it from a guy who has aligned himself with the right people and the wrong people. It's the world of difference when you have the right people at your side.
Yep.
And I know for me, like, I would not be where I'm at if I didn't have the right team and the right people. And I think what's most important, and I think you touched on this, it's okay to not know.
Yeah.
It's okay to not know. Some people have this, like, this arrogance, so to speak, that they think that they have to, like, pretend to everybody in the outside world that they know everything. Whereas, like, that's just going to get you stonewalled.
Yeah.
Whereas if you actually have a little bit of humble pie and you come in, and that's an area where I actually think was beneficial. Like, I went in and I told people from the bat, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did it in the beginning where I was a little arrogant. I was like, oh, I got one big ground up client, and then I got smacked.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, I need to relax.
And even now, after
down
doing
to reality.
hundreds and hundreds of deals, yes, there's a confidence about me, but there is still knowing that, like, I could be wrong about something.
Yeah. I ask you questions all the time. Every day you get something from me where I'm like, what does this mean? I do it to my boss all the time where I'm like, hey, I think I've asked this before, but now I got a different version of it. And he'll walk me through the process, because in reality, you know, if I don't know, it's okay.
Yeah.
But eventually I got to figure out the answer to relay that message over.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So for any agents out there that are, like I said, looking to build relationships with Suffolk County house buyers, Chris is the guy. What's the best way to reach out to you, Chris?
631-953-5813. That's my cell phone. So
Okay.
I'll always be available to answer.
So if you're a real estate agent and you want to discuss a potential deal, by all means, call or text Chris. If you are a builder and you're looking to at least find out more about the products that Insula Capital has for your ground-up construction, text or call Chris. And if you're a new fix and flipper, an aspiring fix and flipper, you could always message me directly. I'm happy to give you any advice. But if you're looking for things on the private lending side, again, text and call Chris. So, Chris, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. And until next time,